At long last, we have arrived at the inevitable beach arc. However, the purpose of this beach arc isn't to perv on underage girls, for the most part, but rather it is here to confront Ryuji with what he believes love to be, and present him with some different types of foundations that a relationship can be built on. Before we get started though, there is a question that must be answered. This arc doubles down on Armi's romantic interest in Ryuji, begins Taiga's path to realizing that she likes him, and drops some pretty strong hints that Minori likes him too. So, is Toradora a harem anime? Well, the most basic definition for a harem anime is a story where a male protagonist is surrounded by women who have romantic feelings for him. And Toradora does meet that criterion, but I would argue that it is only a harem anime in the same way that Portal is a first-person shooter, or Logan is a superhero film. That is to say, while it has the most basic elements, someone who's looking for a blank slate character who they can project themselves onto, who also happens to be the target of affection for several women, will not be satisfied with Toradora, as it lacks that kind of carefree escapism that defines the genre. Now that's out of the way, this arc explores two aspects of each female character through the lens of the arc's protagonist, Ryuji. Each female lead has their own view of love, what it means to be loved, and what makes a solid relationship. Each character also has an approach that they use to attain love. The arc begins with a dream that both Ryuji and Taiga experience, one in which they get married and have kids. Taiga in particular sees this dream as an ill omen, a warning that this will be their future if they do not act. Taiga's plan to help Ryuji get closer to Minori exposes her approach to attaining romantic love, one that we have been working with from the start. A complex, somewhat juvenile approach that seeks to become closer through force, trickery, or manipulation of social situations. In this case, the plan is to scare Minori and have Ryuji jump in as a knight in shining armor, a trope as immature as it is cliched. What this approach says about Taiga and Ryuji is that they view love as something that they can miss out on if they are not willing to go all out. This makes sense when you consider their outcast status. Of course they need to make their romantic interests spend time with them through manipulation, because why else would they? Shortly afterwards, we see Armi's approach to courting a romantic interest. Armi is somewhat of a spoilt brat. She is used to getting what she wants, so it makes sense that her tactic for courting Ryuji is to be overtly flirtatious. While Armi's attitude does not delude her to the point of believing that she owns Ryuji, it does shape her approach. There is no point being covert or sneaky. She just lays her cards on the table and makes her intentions clear from the start. This straightforward approach seems to be something that only Armi is capable of, as Ryuji and Taiga continue their plan to try and scare Minori, and Minori can't even answer a relationship status question without constructing an allegory to hide behind. The first chunk of Minori's monologue about ghosts is meant to be taken literally, but from the moment she answers Ryuji's initial question about having a boyfriend, the talk about ghosts becomes metaphorical. Ghosts being a stand-in for love recontextualizes parts of this conversation, like Minori asking Ryuji if he has ever seen one is actually Minori asking Ryuji if he has ever experienced love. Or Ryuji telling Minori that there is a ghost out there who wants her to see it is actually Ryuji telling Minori that there's someone out there who will gladly give her the love she wants. The most important aspect of this conversation is when Minori wonders aloud if the seaweed ghost that had been terrorizing her that day is actually trying to reach out. We know from the end of this arc that Minori is aware of Ryuji and Taiga's plan. So this thought, coupled with the ghost as love metaphor, is essentially Minori calling Ryuji out for trying to show her love, and her declaration that maybe she will see a ghost someday is her way of saying that she may well reciprocate those feelings. This ghost allegory essentially gives us Minori's approach to love and her view on what love is. Her approach to love is clearly cautious, to approach it as an unknown entity. It's something that she wonders about but seemingly doesn't actively seek. She doesn't really have an idea as to what makes up the foundation of a relationship, but Ryuji brings his own to the table. Admiration. Ryuji likes Minori because he idolizes her. almost to a comical degree. He believes that love is about looking up to and trying to be more like one's partner. Taiga, despite having a juvenile approach to love, has a pretty solid grasp on what love is supposed to feel like and what is supposed to make up its foundation. When she reflects on the day she had spent with Kitamura, she laments that the experience was far more stressful than pleasant. Her view on love is that it should be comfortable, and she quickly realizes while resting her feet on Ryuji's back that comfort is a defining aspect of her relationship with him. She wonders aloud if the dream she had was really all that bad. After all, the dream did present their comfortable status quo with marriage added into the mix. Of course, she ceases this line of speech, but the thoughts continue to plague her mind as the story progresses. Ami quickly figures out what is going on between Ryuji and Minori, and she is none too pleased about it. She believes that Minori is a bad match for Ryuji, and despite her bias in this situation, she does make a compelling point. When Ami threatens to leave Ryuji alone in the cave, she emphasizes that he would feel lonely without her. What sticks out to me is that this is not a foreign feeling for him. We understand that he has been lonely for a decent portion of his young adult life. Ami says this to make a point, that without someone who understands him as she does, he will be alone. This is a strange thing for we as an audience to hear because we know that Ryuji isn't alone. He has Taiga for support. But this contradiction will be corrected by the end of the story. Ami pretending to be lost and panicking to the point where Ryuji becomes a figure of emotional support is her way of bringing out the knight in shining armor that Taiga had expected him to be for Minori. When she reveals the lie, she refers to Ryuji as silly. This comes off as Ami, and by extension the showrunners, critiquing the knight in shining armor trope as inherently immature and implying that the amount of effort he is going to is not worth the relationship he hopes will come from it. Ami follows this up by telling Ryuji that he wouldn't make a good match for Minori. He admires her to a point where he cannot see her as an equal. I doubt you'd ever be mean to her, even if she deserved it. This statement coming from Ami is interesting when you consider how many times she has called Ryuji mean for flat out rejecting her advances. This implies that Ryuji's willingness to shoot her down shows that they would make a more equal couple. In explicitly saying that she would make a better girlfriend, Ami is presenting her idea of love, one that is less reliant on admiration or comfort and one that is based more on mutual support. Ami believes that she, as someone who understands Ryuji, would make a good figure of support for him. This goes both ways. With Ryuji as a partner, Ami would have a social sanctuary, and that is what she believes makes up the foundation of a romantic relationship. The climax of this arc is far more subtle than the last, meaning it isn't quite as easy to decipher what is being said. First, in his conversation with Ami, Ryuji finally understands what she was saying with her threat to leave him in the cave. But he turns this back on her, saying that it was more about whether she would feel alone if they were separated. This is why it makes sense that Taiga wasn't part of this equation. She was projecting her own fears onto Ryuji, and since Taiga wouldn't make a good emotional support for her, she wasn't worth considering. Ami claims that the thought had never crossed her mind, but Ryuji encourages her to think about it and then says that both of them can offer each other support, even as friends, since they are the same. What Ryuji is getting at is that both of them have experienced some form of isolation, Ryuji being feared due to his appearance, and Ami unable to make genuine connections due to her upbringing. Ami rejects that their experiences are the same because at least Ryuji is able to fight it. Since the start of the show, Ryuji has been putting all of his efforts into dismantling the social stigma his appearance has created. Ami, on the other hand, has to put all her efforts into maintaining the stigma that keeps her isolated. She still maintains her performance and as a result can't form genuine connections. She doesn't get to fight against her isolation. All she can do is have a close relationship with one person that she can be herself around, and as far as she is aware, Ryuji is the only person that can give her the support she needs. As far as she is concerned, he very well could be her only chance at genuine romantic love. Following this conversation, we get one between Ryuji and Minori, where she tells him that she wanted to help him see a ghost, and Ryuji ultimately returns the sentiment, both characters implicitly saying that they wanted to show some form of love to one another. You might wonder why, after all this allegory, the two cannot just get together, but Minori says why this cannot happen within this very conversation. She lists other things that she wants to experience, like seeing a UFO or Bigfoot, what I can only assume are more metaphors for other experiences that she wants to have before committing herself to falling in love. It's strange that while she considers love to be an unknown force, she also believes it to be one that can be put off. What she will come to realize soon is that falling in love is not something that can be put off. It's something that happens to her regardless of whether she is ready or not. Out of all our main cast, Minori is certainly the most extreme, the one who is the loudest and most involved with everyone else. She shines bright for the first half of the show until she cannot maintain that image anymore, and when that threshold is crossed, she is going to crash hard. But for the time being, Ryuji has made great progress in his courting of Minori. Taiga realizes this, but she seems somewhat distressed. Her biggest change in this arc has been coming to realize that she may like Ryuji as more than a friend, which makes sense when you consider the outbursts she had only 2 episodes ago. She has always known that she will one day lose him to Minori, but that thought is becoming less bearable as the story goes on, and as we know, it will eventually reach a point where it becomes too much for her to contain. So in this arc, we have been presented with 3 types of love. One that is based on admiration of one's partner, one that is based on comfort with one's partner, and one that is based on support for one's partner. As the show goes on, we will explore these different kinds of romantic love in more detail, but the next arc will explore a theme that is far more interesting: familial love, and whether or not one's biological family is entitled to it. And that is it for this analysis. I'd like to thank my patrons, Orion Train, Quincy Chamberlain, Jaman5, and Lars Espen. If you would like your name at the end of each video as well as exclusive updates, why not become a patron? Or if you'd like more general updates, outtakes, and a community of friendly online peeps, you can join the Discord server. Links for both are in the description. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.